Okay, this video that I'm replying to doesn't seem to be on YouTube anymore, but I've already done it, so here we go. This video is meant to be about how women hate MGTOW, apparently, which is kind of funny because I think if you ask most women on the street if they know what MGTOW is, they'll probably say no.
I've spoken to less than a handful of women in real life about the manosphere and about my personal choices as a man. And I explained to them that I was against feminism, and they were very happy with that particular stance. But when I explained to them that I was a MGTOW, though, majority of them got very angry with me, and I could feel the rage and frustration coming through.
Yeah, and you know what? If I tell black people that I'm a member of the KKK, they seem to not like me either. Say like if there was an online community on YouTube that were like selling the idea that blacks were bad nature, that blacks are inferiors to whites, that blacks are less evolved than white people, and black people should have their rights taken away. Do you expect that black people would like that community very much? Probably not. So why is it like a confusion when women do not like a male supremacist hate movement against them?
If we as men take the energy resources, as well as time that we normally spend on women in relationships, and instead choose to divert that energy for our own desires and dreams, don't we have the right to that type of self-determination? And if we use our lives to accomplish things on our own, or just chill out, why shouldn't we have the right without some women throwing hissy fits directed at us and attempting to shame us back into relationships or marriages?
And who, ever says that there is anything wrong with that? Who has ever told you that you are wrong, for living your life the way that you want to? If you tell, some woman you know that you're a bachelor and you're happy being a bachelor and that you don't ever want to get married or you don't ever want a serious relationship, it's who has ever told you that you are wrong for that? Okay, I am willing to bet that nobody really cares what lifestyle choice you want to live. You know, for some reason, whenever anybody disagrees with the propaganda that comes from MGTOW, people always keep trying to claim that people are disagreeing with their lifestyle choice when most of the time they're not. Most of the time that is not what people have an issue with, okay? And I find it kind of weird because when people disagree with feminist propaganda, if you disagree with the propaganda that feminists come out with about men, nobody says that, oh, these men that disagree with feminists are trying to get these feminists back to the plantation. They're trying to talk these feminists into getting married, okay? The real reason why MRAs get so angry about feminist propaganda is because they're really angry that these feminists aren't getting married and they don't want these feminists to stay single. It's that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Okay, why do people, when it comes to MGTOW, conflict, disagreeing with, the propaganda they come out with disagreeing with lifestyle choice? Why do they, I think, a few reasons. One, it's because what MGTOWs want to believe, okay? Some MGTOWs, they have the revenge fantasy, okay? Some of these guys, despite what they say, it's actually women that have rejected them, yet they call themselves MGTOW because it makes them feel empowered, and they sort of sit there saying wow, this would teach you, won't it, women? We're all leaving the plantation. Bet you're upset now, aren't you, women? When in reality, women didn't want them in the first place. So they sort of have dreams of revenge. So if anybody, particularly a woman, if anybody disagrees, with the propaganda they come out with in their videos, all the lies about how female nature is bad and how women don't love their husbands and how women are abusing their husbands and how women are these resource vampires that are just after men's money and women are too stupid to work for themselves and women are just dumpsters according to all MGTOW. Okay, if you disagree with any of that, it'll be oh, see, they want us to the plantation. When in reality, no woman has ever listened to your obnoxious rubbish or read your obnoxious comments, and what's been going through their mind is that they want you back to to the plantation. Okay, sorry to burst the bubble on that one. Another reason is because a lot of MGTOWs are extremely paranoid about women and think that women are these evil, manipulative things that are walking around trying to manipulate men all the time. So, if a woman disagrees with any of their propaganda, it's like, oh god, they're trying to manipulate us. Like, yeah, whatever, right? And the other reason is they'll never admit that they're a hate group. Even though the internet's public and people can hear what they say and read their comments, they'll never admit that. So that's why, like, no matter how many times people, like, explain to them that they're not disagreeing with their lifestyle choice, like, if you're happy being a bachelor, nobody cares, no matter how many times people explain that to them, they will automatically deflect and say, like, oh, so just because I'm a bachelor, you think I'm a misogynist then? You know, it's like, people can, like, say until they're blue in the face, like, no, it's not your lifestyle choice, it's the fact that you broadcast misogyny all over the internet, and in reality, MGTOWs are not going their own way and living their life like they claim they are actually just pretty much spewing misogyny every day, okay? But they'll just reply by saying, oh, so just because I'm a bachelor and just because I'm going my own way, you think I'm a misogynist? You know, they go back to that deflection because they don't want to admit that they are in fact a hate group, okay? So they'll always try to play the victim and say that people are shaming them for their lifestyle choice, when the majority of the time they're not. I also think that with some guys, they're a little bit self-conscious about being single themselves, so they constantly claim that people are making fun of them for being single, or people are mocking them for being single, or people don't like them for being single, when it's actually not true, because it's kind of a paranoia they have, okay? It's like in their head, because maybe they feel a bit bad about themselves, some of them, so they kind of think that it's everybody else that's like shaming them for being single when they're not, okay? But yeah, women were largely not like MGTOW, because MGTOW makes out that women are these resource vampires, that women are gold diggers, that women are these manipulative things that like never fall in love but just walk around trying to manipulate men all the time.
I've spoken to less than a handful of women in real life about the manosphere and about my personal choices as a man. And I explained to them that I was against feminism, and they were very happy with that particular stance. But when I explained to them that I was a MGTOW, the majority of them got very angry with me, and I could feel the rage and frustration coming through. And the ones that don't like it are basically trying to talk me out of going my own way.
Okay, I'm going to assume that is a little bit of an exaggeration, or most likely just a bare-faced lie, okay? Now, if you're talking about some women online who have heard of MGTOW, okay, once again, it's like, why would it be a surprise? Like, if women don't like it, it would be completely understandable, okay? Because, well, yeah, the majority of women in the West do not support feminism, okay? And there's a fair few women who actually speak out against feminism, okay? And women, like, who will defend the rights of men, okay? But there are very few women that will actually agree with hateful propaganda against women and will hate their own gender, okay? This should not be a surprise. This should be like a perfectly understandable thing.
Most women in our society have a personal identity that is often tied directly to their value as sexual creatures. They value themselves based on men objectifying them. So if men reject the sexual identity of women, they are essentially telling women that they have no value. And when you tell a woman about the existence of MGTOW, you're indirectly attacking her self-worth as well as ego.
Okay, now that is exactly the opposite way round, okay? MGTOW is not about rejecting a woman's value as sex, it is about saying a woman's value is only about sex, okay? And that's not just MGTOW, that's red pillars in general, okay? If it was a case that a woman only valued her own worth for sex, okay, then, like, she would like MGTOW and the red pill, okay? It is true that they're about saying, like, that a woman has no value, but no value other than sex, okay? They're not rejecting a woman's value as sex, they're rejecting a woman's value for everything else, okay? And that's the red pill, okay? You know, videos in the red pill community will be about how female nature's bad, about how women's personality is bad, about how women are uninteresting, not very nice, not very funny, have absolutely nothing good going for them other than sex, okay? So they're not rejecting a woman's worth as sexuality, they're rejecting a woman's worth as a person and making her worth only about sex. Okay, now, if a man was asexual, as in had no sexual attraction to women at all, or if a man was gay, so had no sexual attraction to women at all, that would be rejecting a woman's worth as sex, but it wouldn't be a hateful thing. Like an asexual man or a gay man can still like women as people. Well, red pillars are pretty much about hating women as people, but only liking sex, okay? And that's like, whether you're talking about people in the MGTOW community that do have sex or ones that don't, because some do have sex and some don't, okay? But either way, like when it comes to red pillars, whichever ones we're talking about, MGTOW, incel, pickup artists, whatever, whether we're talking about guys who are getting lots of sex or guys that are getting no sex, doesn't matter. They all are sexually attracted to women and value the woman for sex. They just don't value her for anything else. Okay?
If you've ever rejected a woman in your own personal life or dumped her, then you'll notice how other women also take it as a personal assault on their self-worth when one of their friends is dumped or discarded. It's not so much that they hate us for escaping the plantation. So much is the fact that we've rejected their female value system and the worship of the golden uterus. Worshipping the vagina is a value system that almost all of the women in our society follow. I also believe that women hate us because every dollar that we keep to ourselves or save or spend on ourselves is directly removed from resources that would basically fall into the hands of women. And for that reason, they may actually be showing us contempt because we've basically bruised their, for example, after they've learned about our existence. So that's why women often freak out when I tell them about MGTOW, because it means they have no sexual and reproductive value to me.
Well, actually, if you really tell them what MGTOW is all about, the reason why they resent you is because they resent the accusation that they're all gold diggers and are trying to manipulate you out of your resources in the first place. And that's the paranoia that you lot try to install into young men, okay? And not to mention the fact that young women are actually out-earning young men. So, again, it's an insult. The idea that women, they don't get crushes, they don't fall in love, they don't have any human feelings, they're just trying to manipulate men out of their resources, as well as the idea that these guys think that like women can like provide for themselves in the first place, okay? But I can guarantee you, if the women that you speak to have really like researched MGTOW, there is no way that they are trying to get you guys to the plantation, as you call it, okay? I can guarantee of all the things that you need, you don't, of all the things you could worry about, you don't need to worry about that, okay?
And when they recognize what we have to say, they often subconsciously spring up and attack us. Right now, women may, longiness and white knights can insult us and call us losers or gay. But as our numbers grow, they will increasingly get pissed off and realized that we aren't going away. This would then be the shock and anger phase of grieving, but after their attempts to shame us back to the plantation fail, then they'll try to bargain with us. At that point, they'll become increasingly sexually promiscuous and approach us more directly and demand that we pay attention to them.
I really love the way that these guys in the MGTOW community are so vain that they think like that the way that they treat women is going to emotionally devastate the woman like forever. Like just because you might not have, and a few guys in the MGTOW community might not have sex or relationships with women or might not give women sexual attention, doesn't mean that a woman can't find sex, relationships or sexual attention from someone else, okay? It's not actually that hard for a woman, okay? In fact, even in your own community, like we just said, not all MGTOWs are even celibate. I mean, okay.
Back when I was in high school, there was a girl that was seeking out my attention. She wanted me to put the moves on her, but I was too busy furthering my education to give her the time of day. So after about 4 months of dropping subtle hints, she had to know if I was interested in her. So she decided to bring a Playboy magazine to my philosophy class and proceeded to read it there in front of me to see if I was actually interested in women. She couldn't understand why I wasn't interested. If she had basically come out and said, "I'm interested in you, and I basically want to go out for coffee," or something to that effect, then I probably would have said yes, but instead she was a coward and unable to be direct. I tell you this story to make you aware of that idea that women would rather give up on a guy than ask them out themselves and risk rejection. But if a guy gives up on a woman, they have no recourse.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but if this girl was like buying Playboy magazines, she might not be into men at all, you know. That might be why she didn't ask you out, okay? But also, like, if you would have gone out with her, then likewise we could say that, like, well, aren't you a coward for not asking her out then? Because you're criticising her for not having the guts to ask you out, but you weren't going to ask any woman out either. but would say yes if they asked you. It's like, what's the difference then?
There is no way to recover the damage to their egos if the guy says I'm asexual and not interested in either men or women. To them, this is very alien because they value themselves based on their sexual marketplace value.
Actually, that is exactly the opposite way round. Now, I can say, though, that, like, well, I've heard this, like, a few times, like, from MGTOW about how women are so desperate and how women are trying to get them to the plantation, how women want to go back to the 1950s and how women are, like, panicking and trying to get them to the plantation and all that, like, okay. And it's like, I have never, as far as I remember, I have never, ever seen any woman who comes across like she is trying to get these guys to the plantation. I was like, what woman would listen, like, to their rubbish or read their comments and, like, want them in the first place? But it's like, I have never seen any woman trying to talk these guys into marriage or relationship. Never, okay? Yet, I have seen countless times guys shaming women for not being married, going on about how a woman should be married before the age of 25, going on about how we need to shame women back to getting married early, and or people talking about how women should have their rights taken away because women are out of control. And I think, like, who is trying to get who back to the plantation here, right? You know, and I've heard guys in the MGTOW community say women want to go back to the 1950s. It's like, which women? Because even, like, tradcon women, they are not saying that women, well, not the ones I've heard anyway, are saying that women should lose rights or shouldn't be allowed to work, or that, or agreeing with most of the misogynistic, like, rubbish from MGTOW. It's like, it's not women that want to go back to that, okay? You know, MGTOW is the you can't fire me, I quit movement, okay? And what I mean is, like, I remember years ago, right, at a place I worked, there's a man and woman there who they started dating, right? And they went on a couple of dates. And after that couple of dates, she decided that she didn't think that they were right for each other. So she told him, like, you know, I don't think we're right for each other. And so ended the relationship, right? Now, the next day at work, this guy had gone around and told everybody that he had dumped her, when he hadn't. She was the one who said that she didn't think that they should date each other anymore, okay? And I'm thinking, like, why did he go and tell everybody that he dumped her, like, when it wasn't true? Now, obviously, it must have been because he felt embarrassed about the fact that she finished with him, okay? But I kind of think, like, he didn't need to tell anybody anything, like, because it wasn't really anybody else's business, okay? Now, I know that people, particularly in a working environment, are going to be rather nosy, but if anybody, like, said, like, oh, are you still dating this woman? He could have just said, oh, no, it didn't work out, we're not seeing each other anymore. Like, he didn't have to say, oh, you know, who finished with who. Like, he didn't, like, owe anybody an explanation, but he specifically wanted to say, like, he specifically wanted to tell people that he dumped her, okay? And I've seen this a few times with guys, actually, that, like, if a woman says she doesn't want to see him anymore, they go around and tell everybody that he dumped her when it's not true, okay? And maybe some women do it as well, I don't know, but I'm just saying that I've seen this a couple of times with guys, okay? And MGTOW is kind of like this on a mass scale, okay? Because, well, okay, some of the guys are guys that are rejected and have given up, or at least given up for the time being, in pursuing relationships, okay? And some of them, like, you know, they've had bad experiences and they're, you know, they are going their own, or some people might just prefer being bachelors, but they're normally the ones that don't sit there and bitch about women all day, okay? So the ones that bitch about women all day, it's either, I believe, either that they have trouble with women or they've had a bad experience, okay? But MGTOW, they will always claim, like, they'll say, like, oh, if there's less marriages in the West, if birth rate is going down in the West, they'll always say, oh, well, it's because of men going their own way, okay? Now, it's going to be partly true, but I think the main reason is pretty much because, well, women, like, went their own way first, okay? It's like women are working, women are having careers, women are getting educated, and they're not all, like, rushing to get married, like, well, they're really young, okay? And I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but I'm just saying it's the truth. It is true that women went their own way first, okay? But whenever you hear about, like, falling birth rates, MGTOW will always be asked because it's because of us men going our own way, you see. Or when they talk about Japan, they say like, oh, well, it's because, all the men in Japan, they're MGTOW and all the women are depressed. When in reality, it's more likely because the women are working and having careers and like doing other things rather than straight away rushing into marriage. Okay. And there was, what was it? Like some article about like the birth rate in Denmark or something being low and them trying to get the birth rate in Denmark up. And again, like the usual thing, well, it'll be because women are not rushing into marriage. Of course, when MGTOW talk about stuff like this, they show like a picture of a woman like in a begging position, and they're talking about like, oh well, you see the birth rate's dropping because of all these men going their own way, and they make out like the women are these desperate things, like being like, oh please come back to the plantation, when like it's just not true. They're kind of like too embarrassed. It's like some men are embarrassed by the fact that like there's women that like aren't desperate for a man, which they don't like to believe. Okay. So they've sort of turned it around and sort of make out like it's them walking away from the plantation and there's all these women that are desperate for them, okay, when it's not true, alright? And it's kind of funny because like, well, you already know that on dating sites, it's easier for women to get dates than men, but then like even not on dating sites, it's easier for women to get dates than men. The incels are mostly men. Okay, there's more male incels than there are women incels. Okay, and it's only men that have ever gone on shooting sprees because they can't get a girlfriend. I have never once heard about a woman going around killing people because she can't get a boyfriend. So where does this idea come from that it's women that are all trying to get men back to the plantation? Because, well, there's plenty of women that disagree with the hateful propaganda that comes from MGTOW about women. I have never once seen any... Well, as far as I remember, I've not seen a woman bloody freaking out because a man said he wants to be a bachelor or he doesn't want to get married or he doesn't want a serious relationship. Yeah, it seems like whenever a woman says they don't want to get married, guys go mental about it. Okay, so that's all I've got to say on that for now.